Alright, what is up guys? VV back with another video. And today we're going to be talking about basically the first deck that I'll be taking into competitive play in OP-04. I've been ranting and raving about Rebecca, so obviously, as you'd expect, it is going to be a Rebecca deck. And I'm going to go over the list that I'll be running. Like I said, this is not like, I don't think anyone's running a list quite like this, but I think it's going to be very good. And I'm having to make some adjustments based on what I expect to see against people who are going to be playing against Rebecca. Like people who are making their decks that are, you know, how do I say this? Like they're going to be putting cards in their deck that counter Rebecca, or they're going to be playing decks that counter Rebecca. Cards with a lot of bottom decking and things like that, like blue decks. So, okay, so let's go ahead and hop right into it. First up is Rebecca, obviously. So I'm just going to remove this. This is not like an option. It never will be. So I'm just going to take this off, and then I'm going to turn on the this. There we go. So now it's a little bit cleaner. Excuse me. Hopefully you guys are going to be able to see this okay. I wonder if I should just zoom it into 4ofs. Yeah, that's got to be way better. Okay, so let's go ahead and run through the list. First and foremost, I'm going a lot of 2K counters. I plan, and that's why I'm only running 2 Rebecca 1 cost, because I am trying to use my leader's effect literally every single turn, without exception. Like, you know, every turn, every single turn. Because the idea of control is generating more value than your opponent. Outvaluing your opponent through, you know, extremely efficient effects, abilities, cards, whatever. And another thing is, blue and black has no way to gain life currently. Right, it just is what it is. So I want to keep my life high. I want to have a lot of blockers, a lot of 2K counters, and then just some strong answers to deal with my opponent's board. So real quick, we're looking at 37 Dressrosa targets in the deck. So I should easily be able to hit, you know, 1 out of 2 with my leader's effect every single turn, and then maybe every now and then it'll be a whiff. And the same thing with Rebecca, where typically speaking, I'm going to land it. And just to give an idea of that, let's see if it lets me. It's going to be really. Here's how I see if my searches are going to be good. It's not 100%, but I'll do like a big random shuffle here, and then I'll reveal full deck. And then on every line, I will count up if there are 2 or 3 of the card that I'm searching for on every single row. See, like right here, there was only 1 Dressrosa card, so this would have been a whiff more than likely. This one had only 2, so it probably would have been a whiff, whereas this one had 3, it'd have been fine. You see what I'm saying? Another way you could do it is for a search of 2, anywhere where there was a 2-card overlap of what you don't want, that's a bad sign. But it's going to happen. It's going to happen every now and then, and that's why I am running Doflamingo. So real quick, let me talk about the cards that are not Dressrosa, and I'm sorry if I'm all over the place with this video, but I do have to go over everything in my mind right now. 3000 Worlds is just incredibly powerful removal. It does not KO. It bottom decks your opponent's cards. So, in other words, cards like Marco, or cards like Borsellino, or cards like Fukuro, cards that are extremely hard to deal with, 3000 Worlds just deals with them. Right, just period. It just does. Truno Bastardo will deal with most things, especially once we drop down Kuzan or once we get an Orlumbus on the board. But generally speaking, you know, 3000 Worlds is going to deal with all the things that are annoying for us to deal with up front. And it's only 4 costs, which is nice. So is Truno Bastardo. We'll talk about that a little more later. So anyway, back to what we were saying. 2K counters and blockers. That is what I want in this deck, and I want lots of them. And I'm probably going to end up changing a lot of things around before I'm finished with this deck. Because you have to think of it like this. In the West, the meta will not be the same. Number one, we don't know if we're going to be getting our cards back for the, you know, the red cards that were restricted, the Whitebeard cards. We don't know if we're going to get those back yet. It has not been announced, at least at the time of me recording this, there's been no announcements. So we don't know if we're getting that back. Because of that, it'll probably shift the meta around. And not to mention, people know what to expect now from Rebecca. And I think a lot of blue decks are going to really thrive in this meta. That is why we're running Don Quixote Doflamingo. there's this idea that, okay, well, I'll just bottom deck the Luffy against the Rebecca player, and now they're pretty, they're hurting now, right? And that is true. Generally speaking, they're hurting. Well, Doflamingo, early on, he will serve such an incredible function in the deck. He's a 3-cost 4K blocker, first off, and has a 1K counter. So there's no downside to that so far, right? There just is no downside to that. And then on top of that, it has on play, I'm going to be able to look at the top 5 cards of my deck and return them to the top or bottom in any order. Well, that's good in 2 different ways, right? Early on, I can make sure that I don't miss any searches with my Rebecca. And then later in the game, if my Luffys have been top decked, or if I've put Luffys on the bottom of my deck from his effect, I can then use my Doflamingo to push up 5 cards, right? Just immediately skip through 5 cards and get my my answers that much closer to me. You see what's going on there. And on top of that, think of it like this. There are 50 cards in a deck, right? Well, you're going to draw 5 to start the game, and there's going to be 5 in your life. So there are only going to be 40 cards in your deck. If you're drawing through 2... Well, think of... Okay, you're not just going to be drawing through 2 cards a turn, right? You're going to be drawing through 3 cards a turn with Rebecca's effect. You're going to draw a card for the turn, and then you're going to use Rebecca's effect to look through 2 more cards. So you're going through 3 cards a turn. Just off that alone, not counting Sabo, not counting Doflamingo. So after 5 turns, you've gone through 15 cards, and then you've gone through the original 10 that you start the game off with, 10 in your life and 10 in your hand. So hopefully you guys see what I'm getting at there. You're going to be blasting through cards, and that's not counting Kairos' effect, that's not counting Orlumbus' effect, that's not counting Leo's effect. It's not counting any of that, right? Or Sabo, or getting a trigger from Gum Gum King Kong Gun, and so on. So using a card like Doflamingo in that instance is actually very nice, and it's another blocker. And by the way, this list is all subject to change. Maybe someone will say something in the comment section below that'll make me think, oh, yeah, I need to change that, or I need to run that. But yeah, this is definitely all subject to change. This is just what I'm going to be running the very first week, so that I have an idea of what to play. And yeah, so anyway. Okay, so we talked about the 2K counters. Kaya is more than a 2K counter, by the way. This is a draw 2, trash 2. Early on, this effect is absolutely fun. I would not mind running this on turn 1 as my 1-drop. I'm just saying right now, unless it's against like a smoker, right? Something that can benefit from her being on the board. Just to draw 2 and trash 2, right? Just so I can draw through 2 cards, arrange what I need to in my hand, trash the 2 cards I don't need, and get that engine going. I don't think this is a bad 1-drop. Now, after turn 1 or 2, I would use it very sparingly. I would really consider not using it, just using it as a 2K counter after that. Gats is exclusively a 2K counter. I don't think I would ever use this on play. I'm not saying you can't. You absolutely can. But I would probably just use it as a 2K counter. Bartolomeo, again, like Kaya, this is not just a 2K counter. This is a blocker when needed. So yeah, very important. Against red decks, I would consider not running it unless you can combo it for 1 turn with Sabo, because against red decks, they're going to Marco it, right? They're going to get extremely high value from you playing this. And then you lost a 2K counter and you lost your blocker for nothing, right? They just played a 5-call 6K. Okay, Leo, I have down as a 3-up to start off, because I don't expect to play against many Zoros or Blitz decks in my first, in the first week or 2 of OP-04 in the West. We'll see how the meta shapes up, or, how it works. And Leo's not just for KOing 1 costs, of course. We have Orlumbus, we have Kuzan in the deck, I understand. But we have Kairos as well. Okay, so we have a lot of ways to KO 1-drops. We have a lot of ways to do that. I'm not super worried about it, if that makes sense. So having 3-up to start off the meta with, I think is going to be the right call there. It's also a nice 1K counter if needed. Only 2 Rebecca, like I said, because I eventually want to get down to 0 Rebeccas. I don't want to run this card at all. Yes, it does work nicely with Orlumbus. I get it. So does Leo. So does Gats if you need just a cheap, easy target with Orlumbus, because it does have to be a Dressrosa type character, just so everyone is aware. Like, you can't use Kaya with Orlumbus. It is what it is. But these are all fine targets for Orlumbus, but everyone knows that it's all about Kairos. It's all about using Kairos with Orlumbus. And yes, there's other targets, but you guys get what I'm saying. But anyway, so I want to eventually get all the Rebecca's out and maybe go up to 4 Leo and just go from there. Maybe go up one of these other cards like a King Kong gun or another 3,000 Worlds, or we'll see. So speaking of that, let me jump to the bottom real quick. I'm only running 3 Corda Coliseums, 3 King Kong gun, and 4 Luffy. I actually want to go down 1 of every one of those. If I can get away with it, I will. I want to go down to 3 Monkey D. Luffy, 2 King Kong gun. I might not be able to go down to 2 of those. We'll see. And then I want to go down to 2 Corda Coliseum. For those who do not know, there have been lists that have run no King Kong guns of Rebecca and have done extremely well in the East, if not have won a tournament. I can't remember. And the same thing with... There have also been lists that run no Corda Coliseum that have won tournaments in the East. So just very interesting there. Kuzan as like a big 10 cost drop that just kind of makes the whole deck run a little more efficiently, I think. Because all of a sudden, if Kuzan's down, your 3,000 Worlds is KOing anything in the game or removing it from the, bottom decking it. Your True Bastardo is KOing anything in the game if you have 15 in your trash or not, or a 9 or less if you don't have 15, so it's still very good. Kairos and Leo are KOing 6 or less cards, just so powerful. And I don't want to run too many Kuzans. I noticed a lot of decks were running like 3 or 4 of them. And I think they were running so many because they were scared of getting rid of it on the Rebecca search. But again, I'm running Don Quixote do Flamingo for a reason. I'm even considering taking out the 2 Rebeccas for 2 Peronas. I just want to ensure that I get, 1 Kuzan a game. Because, if the game goes past the point where the Kuzan just gets removed, okay, well, you're probably going to be entering into a late game situation where now you and your opponent are just trading blows. And that's honestly where you want to be. That's why we're running 4 Sabos. That's why we're running 4 Doflamingo, 4 Bartolomeo. That's 12 blockers right there. And then we have tons of removal as well. We got 5 straight removal cards. Monkey D. Luffy's removal when needed. Kairos and Leo are removal when comboed with Orlumbus. You see what's going on there. So yeah, this is... I think that about goes... I don't really need to talk about Kairos. People know what Kairos does. I don't need to talk about Sabo. People know what this does. So this is basically what I'm looking at. Now, as far as some other cards that I'm definitely considering... where is it? There will be some OP-05 cards in here, guys. Just try to ignore those. But Barrier, I'm definitely considering this card as maybe a 1 of or 2 of. What I noticed in playtesting was there were a lot of times where this was not a 1 cost 4K. It was just a 1 cost 2K, in which case I would always rather just have like an additional 2K, whether it be like a Suru or a Tashigi or something, anything but this card. You know what I mean? Because what happens is late in the game, when you start using your Luffy's ability, you are eating your trash up. You're eating your graveyard up and putting on the back of your deck so that you can protect your Luffy or get in extra attacks on their characters. In which case, that turns off your barriers. So that is like a negative synergy. That's like, that's the opposite of synergy there. The trigger's incredible. Okay, I have no qualms with this trigger. That is outstanding, and I have no problems with this card in general. But I do feel like it serves a little bit. It does not quite actually synergize with the deck, with the way the deck plays out. Okay, now yes, I get it. Against like rush decks, it'll probably be very effective, and maybe we'll have to include these if the format's fast enough. But I think against the more mid-range to slower decks, which is what I expect to see at first, I don't think this card's really that great. That could be me. I don't know. We'll see. A card that I can't wait to use is Rebecca, the 4 cost blocker that allows me to grab cards back from my trash. But unfortunately, let's not even look at that. Let's not even look at it. We've got so far away before we get that. Anyway, but yeah, this is basically what I'm going to be going for at first. I don't want to include. I don't think this card is quite good enough. It's a 4 cost 5k, 1k counter. That's all fine. But on play, you're KOing you're resting your leader and KOing up to one of your opponent's characters cost of 1 or less. Okay, well we have 2 other cards that do that are cheaper, right? So in other words, what I'm saying is we have Leo, which literally does that. If your leader has the Dressrosa type, KO up to one of your opponent's cost 1 or lower characters. And then this one also trashes 2 cards from the top of your deck, which is huge for what we're trying to do, right? And the same idea with Kairos. If your leader is Rebecca, KO up to one of your opponent's characters at the cost of 1 or less, then trash 1 card off the top of your deck. So they're just strictly better at what we're trying to do. I think the idea behind Trafalgar Law is actually, notice how it doesn't specify Dressrosa leader, so it's probably geared more towards like, I mean, obviously, yes, it is Dressrosa, but it probably has maybe a little more synergy with like a black-green Isho deck or something like that. I don't know. Y'all figure it out. I'm not exactly sure, to be completely honest with y'all. But I don't see it as being as good as the other two that we just talked about, Leo and Kairos. Some other cards that I'm considering adding. Let me get off here and go Navy. Some other cards that I'm really considering adding just because I think they're so good is Borsalino. We all know what he does. It would just be another blocker, another sticky body on the board. And then also, I would not mind running even like Isho as a 1 of or a 2 of, just to actually replace my Kuzan. Yes, I get it. With Kuzan, you know, I know I already talked about it. Okay, I get it. That puts your Kuzan in the range of, excuse me, with Kuzan down, it gets your 3,000 Worlds and your Truno Bastardo in the range of any character in the game. Any character in the game. But at the same time, I think this card's a little more practical and is going to allow us to have an additional play with his effect. Do you see what I'm saying? We'll see. Because maybe if I switch over to this, I can also run, like, I don't know, so, you know, another card I was thinking about running is the event, this one right here, Impact Wave. A lot of decks were not running this. I don't think any decks are running this, to be honest with you, for Rebecca. But that doesn't rule it out of the equation for me. Just because, I mean, just to put things in perspective, no one was running this either. No one's running Doflamingo. If people are running it now, either they got it from me or they you know, they're on the same thought pattern as me. Because I have mentioned this in the Small Hat Crew channel. I've mentioned this in Heart Pirates TCG channel. I've mentioned this, if not in the channel, then at least at the locals in my area. I've mentioned this quite a bit, that I said I could not believe people were not running Doflamingo. It just seems like such a good all-around card. So again, just because a card is not played in the East does not mean it's out of the, you know, out of question. So yeah, that is one thing I wanted to mention. And then lastly, the last cards I wanted to look at were the CP cards. I think Fukuro will have a good place in a deck like this. We will see. Again, I need to see what all we can get away with on the board, and also 6 King Pistol, because if you notice, let me go back full screen here. Kairos has no counter. Did I miss anyone? No one up here. Monkey Luffy, no counter. Kuzan, no counter. Of course, the events and the stage, no counter. Yes, I get it. You're going to be able to trash these cards with effects like Sabo, but at the same time, it would be nice to just have like a 6 King Pistol or 2 in your deck, so that you can just double over the usefulness of some of these other cards that are potentially dead in hand. But yeah, I'm not saying we absolutely need it. I'm just saying that it's a possibility. What else? That's probably about it. I don't want to go on for too much longer. I really just want to get into the OP-04 format. You know, I just want to go. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If you have any comments or questions or suggestions, I'm always open to suggestions. Whenever I talk, guys, please don't take it as like I'm speaking gospel truth here. A lot of times I'm testing these decks out just like you guys do, right? Now, yes, I have put a lot of playtesting into Rebecca. I do a lot of private playtesting, whether it be with my son or whatever it might be, okay? This deck is so much fun to play. I think even if I don't do well with it, I'm just going to keep playing it. But yeah, I'm anxious to hear what you guys have to say. You know, I do want to hear your guys' feedback on what you think of the list. What do you think about the Doflamingo? Do you guys see where I'm coming from? What do you think about the Kaya? You know, should I run Suru or Tashigi there? Because some decks did. Some decks ran Suru or Tashigi here. I'm actually considering going up to 16 2K counters, guys. I know that sounds crazy. I really am. What else? One more thing I want to mention. I've mentioned this before in other videos. The best I've ever seen Rebecca play, like how do I say it? Like the best, and I've watched a lot of Rebecca games and played a lot of Rebecca games. The way that it plays the best is it tries to counter out of literally everything. I mean, actually everything. It tries to counter out of everything. Play blockers, defend, defend, defend. You know, play your Kairos when you need to. Play your Luffy when you need to get board presence. Play your Leo, blah, blah, blah. But just do whatever you possibly can. Do whatever you possibly can to just not take damage early. And then you just want to get to late game where you're... Think of it. You're always going to draw 2 cards per turn, realistically, with your leader's effect. So even if you are using 2 cards to counter every turn, okay, no problem. You're going to do that. You're not going to deal damage to your opponent. Do not attack your opponent's life. Do not attack your opponent's life. I repeat, do not. Unless you... Now, I will say that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys. Y'all know I'm scatterbrained. Maybe we will make a Rebecca list that is aggressive at some point, because I have been considering that. I have been thinking about going a CP package with Rebecca, or even potentially a Navy CP hybrid with Rebecca. But let's not get too far. Maybe we'll save that for another video, right? We'll save that for another one. But I think that Rebecca should be played as hardcore control. Absolute hardcore control. Now, yes, certain matchups, you may have to change things around. If you're going into yellow, like Big Mom Pirates or Katakuri, well, they have ways of taking your life away, right? Through their through Big Mom, Charlotte Linland's, the 10 cost character's effect. Okay, well, in that case scenario, yeah, we probably need to take a little bit of life early, or we're not going to get any life over the game, right? And they're just going to get free hits on our life. Against a deck like yellow, we probably just want to establish as many bodies as possible, as many blockers, and just straight up fight for board control. So, yeah, it's going to depend, right? Everything's going to depend on the matchup. But yeah, okay, I think y'all kind of get where I'm going from here. I just want to mention one more time that this deck is not finished. This is not the final product. This is just the very, very beginnings of what I think the Rebecca control list is going to look like over here in the West. And just to harp on it one more time, I'm sorry if I'm frustrating people or getting, redundant, but I think the way you're going to want to play Rebecca is drop as many 2K counters on your opponent as possible, filling up your trash, right? That doubles over. It's filling your trash up by doing this. You're saving your life early. You're keeping your hand size low, so that way you can use your leader's effect as much as possible. And then you just want to stabilize early enough to where your late game, these cards down here at the bottom, your mid to late game just becomes kind of unbearable for your opponent. So that's just kind of to wrap it up, to summarize it, to put, in a nutshell, there you go. Yeah. So, all right, if you guys have any questions, any comments, any suggestions, please do not hesitate to list them in the comment section below. I am so excited to get this deck finally running. I have made sure to take time out of my busy schedule to get in on some Friday night competitions here where I live. And the Thursday and Friday night competition where I live is the tougher competition in town, in my personal opinion. So I'm trying my best to make the Fridays I can almost for sure make, and the Thursdays I'm going to try and make as well. So do look forward to some updates coming from me. And yeah, please don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. I appreciate y'all. And until next time, peace.